Well, hello there, YouTube. Welcome to the continuation of this portrait painting. Though the painting is not complete yet, there are, I think, about 3 streams prior to this one where I worked on this painting live. After the third one, I had to work on it off camera, so the middle stage stuff, and I'd say this is in the upper middle stages. And today I'm going to talk about medium, the usage of medium in particular, as we are about, I want to say, the 4th layer in this painting. So it has been developed with 0 medium, just the medium that's already inherent to the paints. So just the linseed oil that's in the oil paints itself and nothing else. Painted very thick with very little solvent, so it actually has not sunken in very much compared to how my paintings usually would have looked before. And I'm working on the same 12 by 16 inch oil primed linen that was also toned, a neutral gray with alkyd oil paints. The palette and all that stuff, all of the materials are listed in the description box of the video. So hello there, Kathy, Marshall, and everyone that's watching this live. Again, not a lot of stuff is going to happen in this stream, so feel free to complain if you want, but it's not going to change very much in appearance. If you're looking for a video where the painting changes appearance drastically, go to the start of one of the paintings. That's where it changes the most dramatically. This is more subtle, fine, finesse things that we're going to do today. And I'm going to be using a mixture of Spike Lavender Oil and cold pressed linseed oil pale. So you want the most clear linseed oil that you can possibly get. It's almost as clear as the Spike Lavender. And what you're going to want to do is, in a separate cup, make sure that you have a clean cup. This is as clean as it can be. You're going to want to have a 50-50 mix. I already have a 50-50 mix in this little dropper, so I'm going to put just a little bit in the cup, and this is just going to be to use as a medium now. And what I recommend doing actually is adding a little bit of oil to the palette. So I have a little bit of oil in the cup, which I'm going to use during painting, and I'm actually going to add a little bit of oil to the palette. So I don't think you've seen this yet. This is a little bit new. So I'm going to add just a drop, and just a drop, nothing more than a drop. You need a wooden palette for this. A glass palette will not work. The wooden palette is just more, it absorbs the oil and disperses it really nicely. So get a cloth. This is a Viva cloth, and you can actually see it's shiny. It's starting to get shiny. And I'm going to oil out the mixing space on the palette. So this is going to stand in for adding a little bit more oil content to the paint film. Because now that this is the final, not the final, but this is like the later stages of the painting, you're going to want to have more oil content. This is not going to be the highest oil content, but it's going to actually have the introduction to oil content in the painting. And a little bit of oil dispersed on the palette is actually kind of a useful thing when you're mixing. I'm going to put this off to the side here. When you're mixing your colors, as you're going to see now, I'm going to go ahead and start with, let's say, I don't know, we're going to start with up here, the forehead color, which is a little, I don't know, towards the pinkish orangey. So I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. You see how the paint just kind of drags nicely? Okay, so I know you can't really see it too much because of the glare, but I assure you the paint is now much more oily. And I'm just using the same old Flake White. This is Williamsburg Flake White. I'm not using walnut yet, just like I did in the finish of the last one. This one I'm pretty sure won't be finished today. If you want to see the finish of this one, definitely check out my Instagram. So I'm using Cadmium Red Deep, and this is Lead Tin Yellow. The most important thing about this stream, if you're wondering what you're going to get out of this stream, is the usage of oil and how to begin to use oil. But remember, make sure your painting has at least a couple layers. This one has 3 layers underneath of this. Plus it's an oil primed linen, so that also helps. Hey Christine. A little bit of yellow ochre. And let's just test it out. Now notice, I didn't oil out the painting. In fact, I have no need to do that because the painting, I usually oil out because my colors have sunken in dramatically. Nothing has sunken in here, as you're seeing, and what you're witnessing is basically the validation of the fact that you don't need to use a lot of medium, and in fact you really shouldn't use a lot of medium early on in the painting. And now what you're seeing is pretty much the exact color, almost the exact color that I had for the forehead, now with more fatty paint. So we're going to be painting more fatty now. So fat over lean is the concept that you want to follow with oil paint, and essentially all it means is that you want your earliest layers to have the least amount of oil and your later layers to have more oil. That is, you want your earlier layers to be more lean. You also want your earlier layers to dry faster. So with the introduction of oil, your paint film should dry more slowly. So in theory, this paint layer will dry more slowly than the previous one. Now you can continue to work in this amount of oil out the palette, put a drop on the palette, use a 50-50 mixture of spike lavender and linseed oil, and you can continue this process for maybe up to another 3 layers. Next, what you do after this is you add just linseed oil to your cup, not a 50-50 mix, just linseed oil, and you can actually mix the oil into your paint. So you can mix it into, maybe in a little dropper, mix it into your Flake White. You can mix it into your paints. I don't really do that just because I paint every day. So what I do in the final layers is I actually just use the full linseed and drop a little drop at a time like this, and I switch to walnut. So a lot of information really early on. Remember, this is not a online lesson by any means. If you're interested in lessons, definitely check out my online classes on Patreon, but I'm trying to give you the most useful information possible while I'm live streaming. And since this is going to be the last stream where you'll see this painting, definitely feel free to ask me any questions, art related. ARC Shahi, oh, thank you for your comment. My eye goes right towards this plane here, and like I said, there's going to be very, very subtle things, and you're not really going to notice a lot change in the appearance of the painting. So I guess if you want to get the most out of this stream, just please ask me any art questions you have in mind, and I'll do my best to help you. This stream will possibly just last for an hour. Trying to finish a painting during a stream is not really a good idea. The most that can really be done is explaining the artist process, but trying to take something from start to finish entirely is just it doesn't lead to the best practices of painting. And another thing I want to talk about with medium is the old masters. The old masters definitely had to grind up their own paints. And I'm going to get to your question in a second, Marshall. Phthalo would have been easier if you were mixing your own paints. Let me tell you why. Because you mix each color every morning, right? You have your oil, you have your pigment, you have your muller, and you're mixing it. Well, you can make your oil paints themselves even more lean by using less oil, or more fatty by using more oil in your mixture. That also goes into the question being asked by Marshall. What paint brands are the leanest? I will say Rublev. I think Rublev is probably the leanest. I can't tell you, I can't really get a chart and tell you exactly which other ones follow from there, but I'm saying Rublev because Rublev has no extra, nothing extra in the paint film other than the oil and the pigment. And in fact, it's so lean that sometimes they will actually start to separate. The oil and the pigment actually separate, and you have to add more oil. So Rublev would be the answer to that. By my knowledge, Rublev. I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, Rublev is the answer to your question, Marshall. Hey Treasure, do you typically use warm or cool studio light on a live model? I go with warm. Cool would be a little too clinical, I think. Now we're gonna go ahead and basically polish up these kind of tier bags. Hey Lily, Tegan, have you adapted any of the old masters techniques into your own painting process? Certainly. Fat over lean is one of them. I do my best to follow fat over lean to ensure the longevity of my paintings. That's one of them. Now, when it comes to painting, I'm more of a direct painter. So I don't really follow an underpainting process or transfer drawings or anything like that. I teach that way, however. My fundamental lessons actually involve more old master techniques like underpaintings and transfer drawings and stuff like that, but for the most part I pretty much just follow fat over lean. No problem, Marshall. You can always go with an old Holland if you can't, if it's difficult to find Rublev. Sometimes the art stores don't carry them. Old Holland and Williamsburg are the next ones I would recommend for the leanest paint. You can also opt for in this little cup. You can also opt for mineral spirits and linseed oil, but mineral spirits is really just good for cleaning brushes. Not so much for painting. I use it for painting, but very sparingly. The cold pressed linseed oil mixed with spiked lavender is absolutely wonderful to paint with. It's a treat to paint with. If you want to use medium earlier on in your layers, I would suggest a faster dryer. So for example, if you really want to use medium in like the first layer or the first two layers, opt for an alkyd medium like Liquin or Neo McGillip. You can use those later in the painting too, but just make sure you're painting. So for example, if I'm going to opt for Neo McGillip, I would have waited maybe 2 weeks for the paint film underneath to be 100% dry. But really, linseed, cold pressed linseed, walnut oil is a good one to use too. That's all you really need. Hey, the remix. Thanks for joining. And yep, as our moderator Kathy has posted, definitely check out Natural Pigments, where you can order your own. All right, I'm gonna move into the hair. You can order your own, whoops, Rublev paints. There goes my brush. Brush is safe, don't worry. All right, we're gonna move into the hair now, because again, not a lot of stuff really needs to be done on camera on the face. So with the hair, I'm gonna start off with one of the darker planes and then move into the light and start to put in a few more curls and details there, and then we're going to get into the flower crown, but not too much for the flower crown. And since this is a virtual painting session, again, please feel free to draw or paint along with me. If you want access to the photo reference, just check the community section of my YouTube channel. Like I said, it didn't sink in that much. I'm painting with Dioxazine Purple, Alizarin Crimson, and Ivory Black. And it's really nice to see that the paint film didn't really sink in hardly at all. Oiling out a painting is really a last resort. It happens. You do have to oil out. I do oil out in the last layer of a painting, but it really should be saved for fine details. The last thing I would suggest is to oil out the painting with each layer, because your painting can prematurely yellow. Hey Nora, hello Maggie. Alright, so I started off fading the darks, and now we're going to move in towards the values for the hair. I'm going to start off by delineating this plane here. So I'm using Alizarin, Sienna, raw umber, a little bit of ivory black went into it, and we're going to put this plane here for the hair. Now you're seeing 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 planes there for the hair. Hey Nora, oh thank you. And another thing to mention with the painting is, especially if it's a big painting, I ended up doing it with this painting, but a lot of times what I'm going to describe happens with big paintings. Sometimes if you have an area in your painting that hasn't been touched, keep it lean. So in fact, you're going to switch from lean to fatty and lean in one single painting. When we get to the flower crown, that's going to be lean. This is going to be fat. There are different areas in the painting that require different levels of oil, which is why I recommend just don't oil out, because not everything is going to be in the same level of completion. Ingrid, yeah, the palette is kind of set up like a rainbow. That's true. Hey Treasure, when painting from a photo, should one normally make the shadows as dark as the photo? I would suggest always try to add something to the dark. Like I always add like a little bit of this one right here. This is Alizarin. I added burnt sienna. Always add something to the darks. Don't just generically make it dark, because that can be kind of flat. But in general, yes, I do recommend pushing the darks in the painting similar to the picture. Let's see, did I miss a comment? Hey Marshall, I found a wonderful dagger brush. Oh wow. Made by Robert Simmons. Oh cool. I usually stick with filberts. When I go into details, I use sables. I use round sables for detail stuff. Like you saw before when we were working on the eyes. Just sables. Alright, so I'm pushing this plane out, and now there's going to be a side plane, front plane, frontal plane, but angled in a different direction, and then another side plane underneath over here. Hey Gary. What's up, Treasure? Simmons White Synthetics is great with water mixable. So speaking of water mixable, to layer fat overlean with water mixable is the same thing. So if you're using water mixable, I would suggest not using any medium for the first few layers as well. And then the only difference between water mixable and this is that instead of the cold pressed linseed, you would use the linseed that has been modified for water mixable oil paints. And I'm actually using a little more of an ochre tint for the hair. Ochre would be a little cooler. Ochre and raw sienna. One other interesting thing about layering with water mixables is one of my students was asking me earlier today about can you use linen with water mixables? And that's an excellent question. You can. Just opt for a universal primed. And once you use linen, once you get used to linen, let me tell you, it's very likely you won't return to using cotton canvas. It's that amazing to use. So anyway, raw sienna, a little bit of yellow ochre. And we're going to put in some more detail for the hair. And yes, there is a little strand of hair overlapping over here, but I don't think that's necessary. Now there's another plane as the hair is turning in over here. So let's paint that in. Ingrid, you're using linen oil primed panels. Those are very nice. But there's something about stretching them. I mean, this one is, as you all may know, is stretched. I stretched it. So you can see the staple marks on the back. You can see how smooth the linen is from the back, and it's a very firm surface. But yeah, there's something about stretching your own and then painting them that's very rewarding. One of these days I want to just get raw linen and then just like build it up from the ground up. Hey Cecile, welcome to the painting session. Let's see, Marshall, is linen more archival than cotton? I will say if they are prepared the same, if the linen and the cotton are prepared the same, then yeah, I would say that linen is more archival. Given the same circumstances and given the same storage, yes, I would say that. Now I want to have a more specific shape for the hair, the top of the head. So Dioxazine Purple and Alizarin. For the dark. Treasure, do I make my own wood frames? Good question. You mean the stretchers? Good question. So to all of you that have a bunch of canvases lying around like I did, basically all of 2017 all the way up to like 2019 YouTube videos were de-stretched. The paintings were de-stretched, and I reused the stretchers. So these stretchers are from the, of course I'm going to put the keys in here once, you know, this goes to a gallery or something, but if I'm so lucky. But anyway, these are all stretchers from old paintings. In fact, you can still see underneath of it, you can still see some of the old canvas. So what I did was I got a bunch of my old paintings, got a razor and just cut all the way across, or just destroyed the painting or whatever. But I got a razor and cut all the way across, and that saves you so much money on stretchers, let me tell you. Because all of this is expensive, right? But when you can save on stretchers by reusing your old paintings, it's great. And they're just stretchers. So if that stretcher warps, you know, if the wood underneath of here warps, then I'll just take the staples off, find another stretcher, and just stretch it back on to a new stretcher. So it's really a great thing to have a bunch of old paintings lying around. Alright, so now I'm going to pull a little more hair. And Cadmium Yellow Pale. Cadmium Orange. So let's get some questions or comments from the audience here. I want to know what materials does everyone use? I know the majority of us use oil paints, but are there any acrylic painters here? Are there any pastel artists here? What does everyone use? Do you use water mixable oil paints? Do you use alkyd oil paints? And while you're commenting, I'm gonna add a few more curls to the hair. So as far as the shirt, I really don't know if I'm gonna put the shirt at all. I might just opt this to be just the head, the hair, the background, and the flower crown. So what's everyone's medium? What does everyone use? Ingrid use alkyd and professional or artist oil paints. Awesome. Alkyds, I definitely use alkyd when necessary. Like when I tone the canvases, definitely I go for alkyd. AIF, is life drawing, or is drawing from life important? Oh yeah. Oh yes. Drawing and painting from life is extremely important. In fact, I work from a photo as a last resort. Um, you know, given the opportunity, I will always choose to work from life. So let's start to do some stuff for the flower crown, and please keep those questions and comments coming on. That way we have more interaction from everybody, and we make this virtual painting session more fun to watch for everyone that's watching this as a pre-recorded video. I'm using a little bit of Cerulean Blue. I'm gonna mix the gray for the flower crown. I'm moving the photo reference down for you so you can see the flower crown. Let's see. Hey, Lou Carey, where do you buy Neo Megilp, the faster dryer, the gel-like medium? This is the one that, oops, I don't think it's showing. Hold on a second. This one right here, Neo Megilp. You can get it from Amazon. You can get it from Jerry's Artorama. You can get it from Jackson's. It's pretty much available in almost every art store, I think. Kathy started with water mixables and now using Rublev, Williamsburg, Old Holland, awesome. It tries water mixables on wood panels. That is a good combo. Let's see, comment from Gary. Would you use a medium with the hair, or use just paint and water for this phase if it were water mixable oil paints? I would use just paint. The hair actually has less layers to it than the skin tone, so I would just use paint without medium. I didn't really use any extra medium for the hair. I just forgot to mention that. This has about 4 layers. This probably has about maybe 2. As you recall, when I started it, I didn't actually put the hair, so this definitely has 1 layer at least above this. And this has nothing, so this will be the most lean right now. So let's start putting the shadows and details for the flower crown. Now you've seen me paint this before, so please keep those comments coming in. Let's try to keep it art based. Let's try to have good conversations about art and what we enjoy to paint. Let's see. And Marshall, you used acrylic paints in art classes 45 years ago. I think acrylics don't really go back that far. I think they go back, I know they go back more than 45 years ago, but I can't quite remember when they were invented. Acrylic was invented not that long ago, I think. But acrylic is also, it can be archival as well. It's just it wasn't created to be just like oil paint. Hey Barak, if I can pronounce your name properly. Yep, I'm doing well. All is well. Hey IF, how can I practice drawing from life? Definitely self-portraits, working from a mirror. Or if you can have someone pose for you, a family member, loved one, a friend, someone pose for you. Life drawing and life painting would be excellent, excellent to do. I always recommend it. In my online classes, we have a project specifically for working from life. We'll continue to have projects like that too, but it is very important. And I'm very happy that you're bringing this up. It is extremely important to work from life. In fact, I always ask myself when I'm painting, am I painting something that's only visible in the photograph, or am I painting something that would have been there had I been able to observe the model from real life? Now let's draw the shapes for the little flower petals. This is the leanest of the lean with the paint. And you can have really lean paint with Flake White. Titanium is not the best for your first layers, although you can use it. I understand some restrictions make it so some people don't have access to Flake White. I understand. But what you want to do is go for Flake White replacement from Gamboge if you don't have access to lead white. But nonetheless, lead white, it is the leanest I think you can get. And it's a fast dryer if you're using the linseed version of it. Hey Marshall, I would agree, yeah. I think acrylics have improved since when they were first created. Maggie used oil paints and pastels. I haven't used pastels in forever. So basically drawing each little quote-unquote flower petal in a very specific spot. I used Dioxazine Purple, Cerulean Blue, I think a raw Umber, but mostly Flake White, Dioxazine Purple, and Cerulean Blue. And when a lean layer overlaps with a fatty layer, it's okay. Don't worry. This definitely will overlap with the layer that should be more fat, but that's okay. And here's another thing about Flake White for those of you that haven't used it. This is a property that you don't really get in titanium white that I know of. That is how thick the Flake White is. Isn't that awesome? And again, it's Williamsburg Flake White. Let me make sure that, whoops, hold on a second. I'm adjusting the focus for you. I got the camera set to manual focus, so forgive me for taking some time to do that. I'm using linseed oil and spike lavender as the medium. Hey Marshall, you haven't tried water mixables yet? If you want to try them, you know, to experiment with them, I would definitely go with Cobra. The thing to note, Marshall, about it is they take a lot longer to dry. Hey Kathy, let's see. Water mixables have beautiful bright colors, bright aqua and purple and yellows. Yeah, they do. Water mixables are great. I don't use them because of the drying time. That's why I don't use them. But you know, if you have a allergy or some reason why you can't use regular oil paints, definitely go with Cobra. Hey Oscar, in your opinion, which is better for painting portraits, Williamsburg or natural pigments Flake White? Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I have them both, and let's get into that one. I love it. That's a great question. Let's get them both out and compare them real quick. All right. So natural pigments, Flake White. I have lead white number 2. I have Flemish, and then I have Flake White with linseed oil. Let me tell you something, Oscar. So Williamsburg Flake White, I bought this at 150 milliliters, and it is, you can see I've almost used it all up. You can see that this is my go-to when you compare it to the Rublev that I have. Rublev is the smaller tube. So to answer your question very quickly, I stick with Williamsburg because it's a much thicker. I find it much thicker than the Rublev one, and I'm going to show you. Always use gloves when you handle Flake White. This is why I love this question, because I'm going to be able to actually show you. Okay, so I'm going to get the webcam closer so you can see what I'm talking about. At least I hope you can see what I'm talking about. The Rublev that I have, and pretty much all of them, is very, very fluid. And yes, I know I put oil on the palette already, but if you compare it to the Williamsburg is more heavy. So I stick with the Williamsburg. However, there is always that factor that Rublev doesn't have the additives to the paint, which actually makes them, in theory, more lean. So in theory, Rublev should be more lean than Williamsburg. However, I actually prefer Williamsburg these days. I enjoy it so much, I went ahead and got a second one. So, you know, once this one is up, I've got this one. And they're also cheaper. So my vote goes to Williamsburg. However, Rublev is extraordinary. It is a great Flake White to use. Great question. Great question. And now, obviously, everything I was just talking about relates to portrait painting, because I know that was part of your question. My vote goes to Williamsburg. So, hey Beverly, hi Pari, and everyone. Have you ever tried the natural solvent from Art Treehouse? If so, what are your thoughts? Art Treehouse sells spike lavender and that's what I have. But it's not from Art Treehouse. I'm using Chelsea Classical Studio. However, I have seen one of my friends use the Art Treehouse Spike Lavender. They also have other ones I'm not familiar with, but I have seen a friend of mine use the Art Treehouse Spike Lavender. Hey Ed, would a 50-50 or 1/3 thinner 2-part medium for the final layers be best for preventing the sinking in? Sinking in really depends on two things. How you build your layers and what you're painting on. So if you're painting on a cotton, or if you're painting on something that doesn't have some kind of foundation of oil paint on it, there is a chance it's going to sink in more. That's one thing. And if you use too much solvent early on in the painting, like if you start off with an umber wash or something, there's going to be some sinking in because of the very, very thin paint. That has to do with the absorbency of the paint layer. Now, in the final layers, I will just use straight linseed. I won't do 50-50. I only do 50-50 when I start layering, and sometimes I'll do less, you know. But to start, 50-50 works well with medium. So spike lavender, half linseed, and then maybe do that for like 3 layers, just half linseed, half spike, and then in the final layers, just linseed, because you want that to be the fattiest layer. Let's see. Hey Mervat. Yeah, there are going to be differences in the painting from the photo reference. This is true. Hey Oscar. Oh, you bought the Williamsburg. Awesome. Yeah. So Williamsburg all the way. Although they're all great. They're all great. Marshall, you have Winsor Newton Flake White. Make sure it's not Flake White Hue, because I don't think Winsor Newton makes Flake White. I think they have Flake White Hue. Alright, so let us do a little more to the flower crown. Yep, no problem, Ed. I'm going to add a little bit of Cobalt Blue, and I'm going to blur the edge for the hair. I actually have to mix up a value for this. So I'm going to use kind of like a off purple. And this is just to blur or soften the edge. It is Flake White, Marshall. I didn't know that they made it. But you're saying that it doesn't seem smooth enough. Flake White is supposed to be kind of rough, so that's why I like the Williamsburg one. As you saw, if it's a really rough textured, or not textured, but if the paint feels really heavy and rough, it's actually a good thing with Flake White. Now I'm gonna add some detail for the flower crown. Not very much though. Hey, not ping. Let's see. Lead white has been banned in Europe. Would you say, what would you say is the best alternative? I've got the answer to your question right here, and this is just my opinion. This would be the best substitute that I know of. See if I can get the camera to focus on it. Come on, camera, focus, focus. Focus. There it is. Gamblin Flake White replacement would be the best alternative. And since we're comparing the paints, let's get to it. So Gamblin Flake White replacement. I'm going to put this on the palette. It is titanium white, however, it's just, it is modified. Okay, so this is Flake White replacement. I'm not going to use it, but I'm going to show you that it has similar properties to Flake White, meaning the ropey texture. You see this? How it kind of stacks up. So that is something inherent to Flake White. But you see, it's still kind of transparent. Now, if you compare this to titanium white, I'll show you the difference in a second here. Now, I'm going to compare the Gamblin Flake White replacement to Old Holland titanium white, and I would suggest the Gamblin Flake White replacement over the Old Holland titanium white. Okay, so that's the Old Holland titanium white. Now I'll show you why I wouldn't use it. So this is titanium white. I'm going to do a little test for you. So raw umber, raw umber, 2 little dots of raw umber. Titanium white. Now you're seeing how much titanium white I'm using. Just a little bit. Look how light this is. Okay, Flake White replacement. Now you're seeing how much I'm using. They're almost the same. So, in fact, the Flake White replacement, I'm going to do the same test, but with Williamsburg. So I'm going to do the same test for you. Remember, we're looking at these 2 dots. This is Williamsburg. Okay. You're seeing how much I'm using. Now you see the difference. This maintains its color, and it's still dark. In fact, Flake White replacement from Gamblin is titanium white, but the difference is it has that ropey texture that titanium white doesn't have. See this? It does not want to stand up unless I really force it. Now, the opacity of titanium white makes it very difficult to work with portraiture. So that's another reason why I suggest Gamblin Flake White replacement over the titanium. And of course, the ultimate is Flake White. So hopefully that answers some questions there. Let's see. So Oscar, is the preparation of a cotton canvas different from a linen in terms of the layers of rabbit skin glue? No, it's not different. They're just different fabrics to paint on. That is, linen is a much more fine weave, and it's a thicker, heavier weave. I hope the focus is okay. Let's see. Yep, take care, Cecile. Oscar, does Flake White replacement dry fast? It's 4 days, I'd say, if you use it not too heavy. Williamsburg, these layers dry for me in 2 days. I'd say Flake White replacement took 4 days to dry, which is faster than titanium. Titanium could take like a week to dry. And Flake White replacement from Gamblin, It has a different feeling to it. It's more of a gooey feeling. So that's something to note. That's different from Flake White, but it's made to handle similarly. Yep, no problem, Oscar. Let's see. What about zinc white or zinc/titanium white for portraiture? Most titanium whites actually have a little bit of zinc in it. Zinc is, if it's used too much, you can use zinc white, but if you use it too much, it can tend to crack the paint film in the future. So that's why everyone says to avoid it. However, modern day titanium/zinc white has less zinc in it, so it's not as not as dangerous to use. I would just stick with Gamboge Flake White replacement if you don't have access to Flake White. The only thing is you're gonna have to also alter the color of it, so maybe add a little bit of yellow ochre so it's not quite as blue. Let's get back into the skin tones. I think with the flower crown, I don't think I want to add much more than that. So we're going to return to the skin tones. In particular, I'm going to adjust. I think what I'm going to adjust is actually the halftone for the corner of the mouth. It looks a little too flat for me, but that should be about the last thing I'll adjust. Thank you for all the comments and questions, everyone, because this definitely, I hope it makes the stream much more useful for viewers watching this as a pre-recorded video. Again, not a lot of painting happens. If you're interested in a stream where more painting occurs, check out the streams titled Starting a Painting. Let's see, Chili 1, would there be a reason to use transparent white in portraiture? None of these are transparent. They're all fairly opaque. The reason why you want to use something like a flake white with portraiture is that you can achieve a higher level of subtlety with it. So like for instance here, for the corner of the mouth, it's a very subtle value change, and I don't even think the camera can pick it up. And if it was titanium white, it would be overpowering. It would be dominating the values. However, you can do it with titanium white. It's just it overpowers. It has a tendency to overpower, so you have to be a little careful with it. Oh, thanks, Ingrid. Hey, Marty. Oh, thank you. You're painting as well and listening. Awesome. Well, this stream is about to wrap up soon. When I begin the paintings, it's usually about 2 hours. When I'm working in the finesse stuff, it's usually about an hour, which is the best time to ask questions. So it's great to have questions from the audience. I'm glad you like the interactions, Marshall. I hope this little demonstration here helped as well. I know I need to get a better camera for this, for the palette. A little pricey though. Okay, so what's left in the painting is some more subtlety. You know, this is a little too cut out. That looks a little too cut out. The eyes are a little too flat. This highlight is a little too strong. The color is not correct at all on the camera, at least on my monitor. So I'm gonna put the brushes down. this painting is not finished. However, it'll be finished on my own. Like I said, it's not a good idea to try to finish a painting in a live stream because, you know, then you're more focused on talking and then your painting is less powerful. So definitely check out Instagram. Sometime this week I'll post a picture of this, the completed one. I'll take the formal picture of it and everything. Next time we'll be starting another, so it'll probably be like a 2-hour stream. Next time will be Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please check my community section because there could be changes. Maybe one time will be pre-recorded, or I don't know. It depends on how things go. Okay. The questions that everyone asks, please, if you're watching these live streams, please have some art questions ready for us because I want to be able to make these streams as informative as I can. Although these are not lessons, definitely check out my online classes on Patreon for some lessons. The first level of the online classes begins at $10, which gets you access to everything. And then there's the live stream, which is $20 a month, which gets you access to watching the lessons live twice a week. And then there's also Zoom, the Zoom tier, where we can hang out camera to camera on Tuesdays. That being said, next time we will be starting another. I'm going to hang out for a little while, answer some questions. So let's see if we have any questions from the audience. And while you're taking your time to write some questions, let's go over what I was talking about in the beginning. This video is titled mediums, right? Using oil painting mediums. So the first 3 layers, this is the 4th layer. The 4th layer is when I started using medium. For a medium, I used 50-50 mix of spike lavender and cold pressed linseed oil. The continuation of this painting, you can use the 50-50 mix for maybe 3 layers beyond this point before switching to just linseed oil for your medium. When you use medium, add medium to your palette, your wooden palette. Do not add excessive medium to your painting. Keep your painting free from extra medium and keep the oil addition only in the palette. So add the medium to the palette, especially if you have a wooden palette, then you're able to adjust how much medium goes into it. Also have medium in a cup so that when you're thinning out paint, use this and not the mineral spirits. And that pretty much summarizes what I was talking about in the beginning. The questions were fantastic, love it. I really enjoy the questions that everyone had. Definitely feel free to ask art questions throughout these streams. So let's see. I'm glad you like the interaction as well, Ingrid. Thanks, Chili1. Okay. So it would appear as though we don't have any extra questions coming in from the audience. So that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for watching this stream, this virtual painting session. I hope it helps you out. We will answer this question that we just got. Hold on. Let's see. Ed, do you prefer cold pressed linseed oil to refined linseed oil? Handling wise, I don't think there's a big difference, but the cold pressed linseed oil is a little more pale, so it's already less yellow to begin with. So in theory, I think it would have a tendency to yellow less than refined linseed oil. I think it also has more of the mucilage removed out of it, meaning more of the outer layer of the linseed, the seed itself. I'm talking about the cold pressed. So I prefer cold pressed linseed, but handling wise, they're kind of the same. Hey Mervat, let's see. Thanks, you probably so useful. Just need to see the palette more. If you can put the camera upside. Oh yeah, I wanted to mount the camera above my head, but I don't really know how to figure that out. What I do want to do is upgrade this webcam soon, so you can actually see the colors better. But thank you for your comment. I'll definitely look into that. Alrighty. That being said, everyone, thank you so much for attending this virtual painting session. I hope it helps you out. Please check out my online classes for more educational content, and I will see you on the next one.